So this is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. It's my pleasure to get back into Jewish astrology, a cosmic science. This book is written, studied, arranged. It's really a tremendous composite of more than one book. But we're reading the part here where he says about Judaism versus astrology. And we are been reading the text of Rabbi Avraham Bar Chia, a medieval Jewish scholar who had created great fame in his time. So he writes over here, he says, I'm not a rabbi, so he said, Reb Yaakov Kronenberg writes, I want to go on a tangent and discuss the controversy revolving around whether ancient astrology is relevant today. Considering the fact that we know that the earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around, the sun revolves around the earth. I was told by an astronomy professor who lives in Jerusalem and taught many years at Harvard, and he is now retired, that the difference between the thoughts of ancient times and today regarding the centrality of the earth is that it doesn't actually matter whether the sun or the earth is the center of the universe. Astronomy can work this contradiction out using mathematics, and you can figure out everything from either perspective using different mathematical models. Some things would be easier one way, some would be easier the other way, but more or less you can work everything out using the two systems. So what, he says, is behind the idea that people of the ancient times saw the earth as the center of the universe, while modern people see the sun as the center of the universe? So he tried to say that ancient people looked at things from a more spiritual perspective. If you look at the Arizal, for example, at the beginning of the Eitz Chaim, the famous book of Kabbalah where he talks about the two approaches of looking at the world through the tree of life, where you either have the world of circles and or the world of straight lines. Now, this is a basic fundamental principle in the Eitz Chaim, and it can be explained. You could say that the circles, it's a feminine concept, the concept of circles and cycles and balls. And then there's the concept of directness, which is a straight line, which is the male concept. Now, that's over there, that I can add that. So astrology is the world of circles, because all the planets circle the earth or the sun. And the circle that is the more outer is the more spiritual, for it surrounds and encompasses the circles within it. So imagine a series of concentric circles, and it sends forces down to them. And the next circle is higher than the one below it, until you go from circle to circle, down until you get to the bottom circle, which is the earth, and that was considered the lowest spiritual point. Like the soul coming down to the pit, the earth the lowest place possible. And that is why they saw the earth as the center of this spiritual system of circles. So this is looking at things from a very spiritual perspective. But today, everything is measured. And you measure things with physical instruments. So if you look at things from a more physical way, then it comes out that the sun is the center of the universe, but it all leads to the same conclusion. Now, let's just summarize what he said. He said the earth, which in Kabbalah is called Malchus. So Malchus is really at the bottom of the cycle, because everything starts here, because that's where we are. But on the other hand, you can calculate and you can see how things move, and you can make a statement that makes the sun the center. So everything depends on the circles and how we look at them. Now let me see, I think I always have problems here because I can't get everything on the page, so I think we might have missed some of this, and I apologize, but we at least have my words, so let's try to keep it on the page again. So, let me see where I'm at here. So he says, it is good for a man to forbid himself from doing all these acts which the king of Babylonia asked through them, because they are called divinations, and the Torah forbids us from divining. Like it says in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10, they shall not be found among you, one who causes his sons and daughters to pass through the fire, one who practices divinations, me'onin, nachash. So these are people who, apparently the onin and the nachash are people who read omens, and mechashef, which is a sorcerer or a person, we call it a witch today. The Bible in Hebrew uses the word me'onin, which some mistakenly translate as astrologer, but is not so, and Rabbi Avraham does not define a me'onin as an astrologer and states that a me'onin is not a standard Hebrew word for astrologer. So remember that we are still working on the relationship between astrology and trying to prove the relationship between astrology and Judaism. So I'm going to quote the full piece from the Bible in Deuteronomy using a standard English translation, and here it is. There shall not be found among you one who causes his sons or daughters to pass through the fire. This was called Malach worship. One who practices his divinations, an astrologer, and then he says it's a me'onin, who reads the omens, and the me'nachash, a sorcerer, or a mechashef, which is a witch, or an animal charmer, one who inquires of the Ov or Yeduni, or one who consults the dead. For anyone who does these things is an abomination to Hashem. And because of these abominations, Hashem your God banishes the nations from before you. You should be wholehearted with Hashem your God. For these nations that you are conquering, they hearken to astrologers, me'onin, and diviners, kosimim. But as for you, not so has Hashem your God given for you. So we learn from that. All these worlds, the planets, the angels, the sphera, the spheres, whatever are all intermediaries, which were put in place due to the sin of Adam and Risha. Because people are not on the level to get things straight from God. And so therefore, and things have to come down through various levels until the person can receive it. But he is not in the state that he can get things directly from God. And God uses the planets to send things down to people. I have never seen any conventional book that talks about this issue of why was the world made in such a way that the planets, the spheres, are used to send energies to people. If it is a given fact that astrology works, then we need to ask the question, why do we need planets to run things down here? This is a question that especially those astrologers who don't believe in God should ask. How did the world end up being influenced by planets? Nice line. Let me move this up a little bit and try to get everything lined up and keep us together here. How do we do this? Turn the book. So he says, I'm offering an answer here, which is not my own answer, but from a famous Kabbalah book from about 100 years ago, where it is written that the planets are intermediaries and the world has to be created through intermediaries, and for most people, things couldn't be received straight from God. The exception is the righteous individual, for the goal of the righteous person is to get to that level where he gets things straight from God with no intermediaries. This is the highest level of the righteous person who is above the planetary influences. One who can somehow almost make his will God's will. In other words, he can harmonize with God and become so attached and so connected to God that he is totally above the planetary influences. This would be the highest state, and this is more than just doing the mitzvahs. It is doing what you were told to do with such fervor and heart that you are intimately attached to God. You have to want God. And God is directing your life because he's within us. And that level puts you above the stars and you get things from the source. But today I think that most people are getting things via the stars, so that is why we are learning this book. Nice line. So we're going to stop here because our time is up. So this is really, we're coming towards the end of the argument and the understanding of where the circles and the balls and the lines and so on and so forth, which is all part of the discussion of Kabbalah, are located. This is Baruch Fleischman. This is the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and that's the shir on Jewish astrology for today.